Hello, welcome to the second episode of The Moment. I certainly hope you enjoyed the last one. Now, I've only got 2 stories for you this week, and that's because this first story is quite a bit longer than anything from last week. It started off as just a small follow-up to the developments in Morpeth and evolved into something much bigger. And the second story I have is about one man's 5,000-mile journey around the coast of Britain. So if you remember the last show, I did a story about development plans for Lonesdean in Morpeth. Now, if you remember that story, essentially 3 development plans have been approved by Northumberland County Council, and one of those was a big retail park on the outskirts of Morpeth. Now, the obvious The people most obviously impacted by that are small business owners in Morpeth, of which there are a great deal. So I went to talk to one of them, John Bainon, who runs a TV repair shop, who's concerned about the planned retail park. So I asked him about his grievances with the development. So what are you most concerned about with the new development?
Losing the jobs from County Hall. But mainly because of the retail development. The council zone or the developer zone consultants estimate at least 25% drop in footfall down the centre of Morpeth for the big shop, and there's no supermarket, national supermarket could stand that, and Morrison's aren't taking that much they could afford that sort of a drop. And if you have the link shopping to independents, that's going to be at least 15-20%. And there's not an independent shop in the town that could afford that sort of drop on a regular basis.
Yeah. So how do you think local business can try to survive in the midst of that?
If the retail development goes ahead, which we hope it doesn't, it'll be very, very difficult. They're saying that they're going to create 280 jobs up at the new site, but they'll lose dozens of businesses and hundreds of jobs in the town centre. So local businesses could survive.
So why do you think they've gone ahead with it, the council, despite the protests? They
haven't consulted properly with us. They don't know all the facts. Some of the facts they give were incorrect, especially on the Morrison's turnover. And you've got to wonder whether they actually care about Morpeth Town Centre.
I mean, some people are sort of saying that they thought that the development was done basically just to give Arch another development. Would you agree with that?
There's a lot to be said for that, yes. Yeah. I think they're trying to turn Morpeth into another Cronington. But I think that also it's a lot of finance, which they're after, the money which they will take out of Morpeth and not leave in Morpeth.
I mean, are there any sort of councillors that are sort of fighting the fight for the people?
The Conservatives are fighting, and they've said that if they win the election, come into power on the 4th or 5th of May at the election, they'll pull the plug on the whole development at Lonesdean, stop the move from County Hall and stop the retail development. So really what we're going to hope for is that we can get in a council administration on the 4th of May.
So one of those final questions there that I asked John was about Arch getting more developments, and it seemed a bit of a flippant question. It was sort of off the cuff, really, inspired by something that one of the protesters at Morpeth County Hall had said, that they believed that Northumberland County Council were just giving contracts to Arch. And I did some looking into this, and this is actually from Northumberland County Council's own website, and they have a page about Arch, and they say that, quote, Arch's mission is to help to create a prosperous, attractive, sustainable communities in Northumberland, promote enterprise, attract private sector investment and support, and the regeneration of disadvantaged places and neighbourhoods. So that's a direct quote from Northumberland County Council's website. The reason that sort of struck me as odd was because why would the council have a page on a development company? Now, if you go onto Arch's website, they have this infographic explaining how their business model works. And basically what they say is that the county council invest in Arch to develop properties and land in the county, and then the returns on the investments, I should say, from those properties are then reinvested into the council from Arch, who can then spend that money on whatever it needs to be spent on: roads, schools, local services, that kind of thing. Now, this may seem like it's a bit of a monopoly because the developers are giving back to the council and the council are, throwing new contracts Arch's way. That may sound a little off, but then you discover that Arch is actually owned by Northumberland County Council, completely owned by the council. I found this out from an interview, actually, on the Chronicle, which I'm going to put in the description of this video, so you can go and check that out, with Peter McIntyre, who is the director of Arch. And one of the first lines in that story by Graham Whitfield was that Arch is wholly owned by Northumberland County Council. And I thought this was strange because I hadn't seen that anywhere on Arch's website. There's no Northumberland County Council flag or banner, or there's nothing that says that they have any kind of direct partnership with the council. So I thought, well, that's a bit strange. They don't say that anywhere. But I did actually find out where information comes from. And in fact, you can find this as well. If you go onto Arch's website, there's a little tab at the top that says About Arch, and that then opens up a PDF, and you scroll down 5 pages through the PDF. This is for... the PDF is about their corporate strategy. I should point that out. It says Corporate Strategy 15 to 18, and you open the PDF, you scroll down 5 pages, and there it says wholly owned by Northumberland County Council, and with a board drawn from the public, private and third sectors, Arch brings a distinctive and enterprising approach to promoting economic growth in Northumberland. That's a direct quote from the PDF. So that information is pretty hidden, and you do have to wonder why they would hide that information. Now, it's not that it's completely unavailable. Like I say, I was able to track down where this information came from. But the strange thing to me is that not only is it not very clearly disclosed on Arch's website, as it probably should be, but the fact that the interviewer didn't seem to particularly be perturbed by the fact that one company seems to get all of the development contracts in the county, and that's because they do, because they are essentially a branch of the council. They're a development branch of the council, just under a different name. And it would explain why the people of Morpeth, in this particular case, didn't feel like the council were listening to their protests about not wanting this new development in Lonesdean, because it was already a done deal. These plans were going to go ahead regardless. And, this has happened in so many different places. Pretty much wherever Arch is planning a new development, you see people protesting it, and then it gets done anyway, regardless of the protests. So they certainly have a very distinctive approach to town development and planning. That's definitely true. And there is a quote directly from that Chronicle story from Peter McIntyre, where he says, "I get a lot of phone calls from other councils about how do we do an Arch." And this isn't surprising because, it has been a very profitable model for Northumberland County Council. And why wouldn't other councils want to follow this model? So the problem with all of this is not that it just seems underhanded, it's that whose interests are really being served here. And it seems as if it is entirely to the benefit of the council and to Arch and nobody else. And again, a quote from that Chronicle interview. Peter McIntyre says about the beginnings of Arch and how it actually started. He says, "I began to work with Steve Mason, who was the council's financial director at the time, to really look at how we build a sustainable development platform." So it's clear by the admission of Mr. McIntyre there that Arch's strategy was to work directly with the council right from day one, and work on behalf of the council, more to the point, in developing land. It's not just that there's a monopoly in Northumberland. It's not just Arch is this one developer who is given all of the contracts for no other reason. This is more than just a monopoly. This is a group that has attached itself symbiotically to the council and who are funding the council through their developments. So there really is no easy way to break the cycle, and unfortunately it seems as if the people are very much once again left to the sidelines in favour of profits. Now, to be fair to the council, just for one moment, they did say that this was because of budgetary cuts to local government, that they felt compelled to have to seek this kind of development program in order to have more money for the council, in order to spend in other areas. And yes, it is true that the money brought into the council from those returns is able to be spent wherever they want. I'm not arguing with that. What I am arguing with is the means by which they carry out this end. It's not a good sign when a company is not upfront about who it works for. And this is true for any company, whoever they are. The best thing that a company can do is to be upfront about it. Is to say, yes, you know what, we are owned by Northumberland County Council, even if they just had something at the top of the page of Archer's website. That would be at least something towards showing where their actual loyalties lie, as opposed to this pretense that they are just a development company. They do say they are the Northumberland Development Company, but I don't know if anybody really took it that literally, as in they are the Northumberland Development Company, and nobody else even gets a look in, because there's this positive feedback loop that starts from the council and carries on through Arch, and then ends up back at the council at the top again. I don't know if a lot of people know this, and so this is why I'm putting this out there, just to inform you that this is why your voice seems to not be listened to by the council. It's because why would they listen to you? Why would they listen to the people when they have this entire thing sewn up? And this isn't conspiratorial, because all of this information is readily available. This information is completely discoverable. You do have to dig around a little bit in order to find it, but it's not something that you need to be a fantastic detective in order to find. So this is more for your benefit, just so that you know exactly where these people are coming from and exactly whose interests they really do have in mind. And of course, one of the problems with this is that this doesn't allow for any kind of real competition. If it were just a case that the council were giving out contracts to one developer, then at least that gives the opportunity for other developers to come in and try to compete. With this system, there is no possibility for competition. There are no other developers under this current system who can actually get in on these contracts, who can actually develop things instead of Arch, because Arch has already bought the land. So this is a very difficult position that the people of Northumberland find themselves in, and it's bigger, I think, than some people realise. Now, John Boehnon's position, as you heard in the interview with him, is that people should vote Conservative because they have said that they are against these developments and would want to put an end to them. So that might be an idea, but who knows if that really would make any difference. Right now, it's time to move on to something a little more positive, I think. So, finally, I've got an amazing story about a man by the name of Kieran Sandwell. Now, Kieran was born with a condition where the arteries in his heart were linked up back to front, and he had open heart surgery at the age of 3, but his problems continued throughout his life. He's had 2 mini strokes in his early 20s, but now he's actually trying to raise money for charity by walking 5,000 miles around the coast of the UK, which is just an incredible journey, a huge thing to take on. So he started at the British Heart Foundation down in Barking, and he's currently going up the east coast of the UK. So right now he's made it to Scotland, where, according to his website, he'll have gone around the whole of Scotland by the end of July. So I want to take the opportunity to give a shout out to Kieran on his epic journey, which, again, according to the website, will be completed in December. So he's still got a huge amount of ground left to cover, but what a huge undertaking. I don't think I know anybody who would willingly take on something like that. I mean, you've got to be a pretty determined individual to go ahead with something like that, and to even think about doing that in the first place. It's an incredible thing, and I would recommend you go and take a look at Kieran's website. It's trail-of-2hearts.com, and it's got a route map on there showing you exactly where he's going and where he's been, and just looking at it's an amazing journey. So that's a shout out to you, Kieran. And that's all for this episode of The Moment. Join me in a fortnight's time for more stories from around Northumberland and Newcastle. Until then, I'm Oliver Ralph, and this is The Moment.